In Bowling Green, more family testimony, this time on behalf of Brooks Houck, the chief murder suspect in the 10-year-old Crystal Rogers case. This is his sister, Rhonda McAvoy, you see from the outside the courtroom today. New video. It comes as we learn late today from the judge that he now plans to have the jury deliberating by next Tuesday.
And some key points came out of today's testimony. WHS 11 News legal analyst Nick Mudd is here as the trial hits a pathway toward the end.
Now, Nick, you also brought up something earlier this week. You said it right here on our newscast and our live stream at 9 o'clock that was finally addressed in the courtroom today. You said, why didn't anybody ask them whether they have hogs on that property when that gruesome testimony came out earlier today? Today, Brian Butler, the defense attorney, did just that.
He did. You know, I thought that was the obvious question. I mean, I think I texted you immediately. I believe that it was Brooks Houck's sister who said there were no hogs on there. They were, quote, little pink pigs with black spots. So, you know, I mean, I'm not much.
Why do you think trying to say they're piglets? I mean, what does the jury take from that?
Why did he finally ask that question, too?
I mean, I think he wanted to kill it in their minds because it was a beneficial answer to him. You know, we heard about hogs and pigs are much different. A little piglet is different than a giant hog who will eat anything, just about. So, you know, I think he wanted to put it out there and kill any notions that they did have hogs on the farm, and he did just that.
What struck you by the defense today, and who stood out, do you think?
Well, certainly, I think we were a little flabbergasted. We saw Brooks Houck's sister walk in. We've never about her at all. None of us have. I mean, maybe a report here or there. And I think the defense used her probably to humanize Mr. Houck, stuff like that. She did talk about that the child that Brooks Houck and Crystal Rogers had did have eye issues. That was reason for the tenant windows. You know, and certainly I think she just kind of, they were asking about her night, things like that, but nothing really groundbreaking.
She testified of it when they asked her about the tinted windows on Crystal's car. She said really thick, dark tinted windows. But Rhonda McAvoy also was asked specifically, why were you wearing a recording device? Why did you secretly record grand jury testimony?
I think she had a good answer, though. And I mean, obviously, she was prepped. She said, look, it felt like we'd been targeted. We're scared. So, you know, to make sure nothing that I say gets confused, I'm going to record it.
The whole family was paranoid.
Right.
Isn't that illegal?
Well, you're not supposed to bring a recording device in a grand jury proceeding. So I doubt she would be charged. Certainly, she could risk a contempt or something.
Your opinion on the fact that tomorrow we're going to get more witnesses, but then the judge is going to hold them over through the holiday and closing arguments on Monday, as Judge Sims announced today, and then goes to the jury for deliberations possibly on Tuesday. Yeah,
I've tried dozens of cases, and I've never seen that happen to where a judge has the attorneys close and give their arguments, essentially the summations, which are very important because that's where the attorneys really sum up what the case is, and that's what we've talked about so much about the prosecution building that circumstantial case, throwing that web, and that's where the prosecution really pulls it all together and argues because they get to go last. So the defense attorneys go first in closing. The prosecution that'll be the last thing to hear. But I've never had it to where the attorneys close, give their final summations, and then the jury's just dismissed until the following day and not allowed to deliberate or talk about that. So it's very strange to me. I don't know the reason for it. I'm sure there's a reason, but I've never seen that happen.
You said there was something interesting today about the phone records. Can you bring that up?
Right. Certainly, I believe it was Joey Lawson's attorneys who had Adrian Lauf, I think he's a professor at U of L, they had him testify. And he testified in his review of what's called NELOS data. I don't know much about it, but you know, he analyzed the phone records, and certainly he's a professor, he's an intelligent person, has a PhD, and in his opinion he said that Steve Lawson's phone pinged on, it would have been on Boston Road, not on the Bluegrass Parkway, which is what the prosecution said all throughout Steve Lawson's trial and this trial.
But they had their own expert, correct?
Right. So and don't they say the towers can ping from all over the place?
They can, and you know, that's what when I believe LMPD Detective Tim O'Daniel testified for the prosecution, he was asked, could it ping off the towers, and could Stephen Lawson been on Boston Road? And he said, it was somewhat possible.
Right.
Well, you know, the cell phone evidence. So let's talk about this case. It's a circumstantial case.
Right.
And so right now, the most compelling evidence, I guess you can trust, would be this cell phone data, which you said to me, it really is what ties Brooks Houck to Crystal Rogers in the final moments of her life to the day, that night of July 3rd. Is that going to be the theme we're going to hear going into closing arguments?
I think it will be, but they have to build the timeline. If they don't build the timeline, the jury is potentially going to risk being confused, and he's going to walk out the door. I mean, people don't want to hear that, but timelines are so important, especially in cases of circumstantial evidence, because you have to build up for the jury why the circumstances lead you to believe beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed murder.
Okay.
All right, Nick Mudd, thank you. Nick's going to be here for our 30-minute wrap-up. That's at 9 p.m. on the free WHS 11 Plus app. We'll be joined by Shay and Alexandra Goldberg as we break down everything happening in court today. Connie?
All right.